In this video, we're going to take a look at a purple ink by Rohrer and Klingner Solfarino. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the purple playlist, so if you want to see more purple inks, you can check that out there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine's a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading, like the is darker than quick, and quick does go from lighter to darker, darker at the K. The is much darker than lazy, over goes light to dark, 16 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It is showing some shading. Fox goes light or darker to lighter. Brown goes darker to lighter. Quick goes dark to light to dark. 28 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for the extra fine shows a little color variation, and there is some. The medium shows none, and there definitely is. In the smear test, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then, a Lamy All-Star with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, some minor ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine's quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 24 seconds to dry. Medium is much darker than everything else on the page with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 41 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation. We're not getting it, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that this is a true purple. There's no mixing to get this. And on top of that, it really flees from the water, moving its way up and gathering at the top. Now, the one on the right that's let dry for 10 minutes looks the same. So we're not expecting any kind of resistance for this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading like the K in quick, B in brown, or the F in fox, 18 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, little bits of shading like brown starts dark and works its way light. Over goes from light to dark. The word the is very dark compared to what's around it. 30 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for the extra fine shows some color variation, and there's some. The medium shows none, and I think it's better in the medium. The smear test says you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing. Looking at the highlighter, I feel safe using this in a note-taking situation. It really held together quite well. Yes, it did spread a little bit, but all of the information is absolutely there. It's very readable, and it doesn't look gross. The water is reactivating and lifting quite a bit. You look at the right edge of where that swatch was, and you see that it is doing a really good job at getting it off the paper with 30 seconds and trying to take it away. Now, it did only take water to get this out of my pen, but look at pen flush. It's obliterating this ink, completely removing it. You're not going to need it, but it is nice to know that I would expect it to destroy the ink from the pen as well. The 1/3 bleach solution that you're not going to need absolutely removes it from the paper. The next writing sample is done on P. Berger paper. Now this is a student grade paper, so we're not expecting to have tons of things. Now here's a ton of great performance. Here's the thing about all of this bleeding spots that you're seeing. It's not touching the page underneath. So you're not corrupting your next page. That's good. The bad, it's bleeding so deep into the paper that you can't use the back side or you'll lose both sides of notes. The 1.1 does okay. There's some tiny feathering. You see it on the capital letters more than you'd see the lowercase letters. However, the feathering's not the end of the world that's here. There's no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is lighter than the stub. It has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub. Tons of feathering. Look at the B in brown. All of Fox, the K in quick, the Q in quick, the PS in jumps. Tons of tiny feathering. It's much worse here than we saw in the stub. I do think it's a little distracting here, but I also don't think it would stop people from using it here. It's got no spread, halo, sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation. We're not getting it. In the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Rohrer and Klingner Solfarino has a viscosity of 1.95, meaning it's just a little bit wetter than normal. If you're interested in how all that viscosity stuff is done, there's a link to that video down in the description. Let's take a look at the next writing sample done on Levenger paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. The medium is the darkest tone on the page. There's some feathering that's occurring in the K, and there's some feathering in the word the and in jumps. Very tiny feathering, not the end of the world, but it is definitely there. No spread, halo sheen, no shade, 18 seconds to dry. I'm going to say I was very surprised by this because I typically don't have problems on Levenger paper. The scrubby for both shows no color variation. We're not expecting it or getting it, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Rohrer and Klingner Solfarino has an average dry time of 26 seconds, meaning this takes a little longer to dry, so be patient. The last writing sample is done on Strathmore writing paper. We have no bleeding, but we do have some ghosting that's going on here in the medium. So it generally does good, but on your wetter pens, may not look as nice. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 8 seconds to dry. The medium is the darkest tone on the page with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 12 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation. We're not expecting it and we're not getting it. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Rohrer and Klingner Solfarino, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice brown ink by Kaweco, their Caramel Brown. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Rohrer and Klingner Solfarino? It's a very nice magenta-leaning purple with occasional spots of shading. It reads as a very bright purple on the page that is kind of punchy. I like it. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I didn't care for its darker look from wet pens. I'd prefer a medium to dry flow medium pen to really get that punchy purple that it can be. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at Pen BBS number 135.